World War II, the deadliest war in human history. Imagine waking up in a world where entire cities are reduced to ashes, millions of lives are lost, and the future of humanity hangs by a thread. This was the reality of World War II, the deadliest conflict in human history. World War II began on September 1st, 1939, when Germany invaded Poland. Led by Adolf Hitler, Germany sought to expand its territory and establish dominance over Europe. Just 2 days later, Britain and France declared war on Germany, marking the official beginning of a global conflict that would last nearly 6 years. But the roots of the war go much deeper. After World War I, Germany was left economically devastated and politically unstable. The Treaty of Versailles imposed harsh penalties on the country, creating resentment among its people. Adolf Hitler used this anger to rise to power, promising to restore Germany's greatness. His aggressive policies and expansionist ambitions eventually pushed the world into another catastrophic war. The war was fought between two major alliances, the Allies and the Axis powers. The Axis powers included Germany, Italy, and Japan. The Allies consisted primarily of Britain, the Soviet Union, China, and later the United States, along with many other nations that joined the fight. Germany's military strategy, known as Blitzkrieg or Lightning War, proved highly effective in the early years of the conflict. Within months, Poland had fallen. Soon after, Germany invaded Denmark and Norway. In 1940, German forces swept through Belgium, the Netherlands, and Luxembourg before launching a massive assault on France. The French army was defeated in just a few weeks, and Paris fell under German occupation. Britain now stood virtually alone in Western Europe. Adolf Hitler believed Britain would surrender quickly, but he underestimated the determination of its people. The Battle of Britain became one of the first major military campaigns fought entirely in the air. German aircraft launched relentless bombing raids against British cities, but the British Royal Air Force successfully defended the country. This victory marked Hitler's first major defeat and prevented a German invasion of Britain. Meanwhile, in Asia, Japan had been expanding its empire for years. Seeking control over resources and territory, Japan invaded parts of China and Southeast Asia. Tensions between Japan and the United States continued to rise. On December 7, 1941, Japan launched a surprise attack on the American naval base at Pearl Harbor in Hawaii. Hundreds of aircraft struck without warning, destroying battleships and killing thousands of American military personnel. The following day, the United States officially entered World War II. Germany and Italy soon declared war on America, transforming the conflict into a truly global war. Perhaps one of Hitler's greatest mistakes came in June 1941 when Germany launched Operation Barbarossa, the invasion of the Soviet Union. Initially, German forces advanced rapidly across Soviet territory. However, the harsh Russian winter, logistical challenges, and fierce Soviet resistance slowed their progress dramatically. The Battle of Stalingrad became a turning point in the war. Lasting from 1942 to 1943, it was one of the bloodiest battles in human history. Soldiers fought street by street and building by building. Hundreds of thousands lost their lives. Ultimately, the Soviet Union emerged victorious, forcing Germany onto the defensive. From that moment onward, Nazi Germany began to lose its momentum. World War II was not only fought on battlefields, it was also a war against innocent civilians. One of the darkest chapters of human history was the Holocaust. Under Adolf Hitler's regime, millions of people were systematically persecuted and murdered. Approximately 6 million Jews were killed in concentration and extermination camps. Millions of others, including political prisoners, disabled individuals, and minority groups also became victims of Nazi persecution. The Holocaust remains a tragic reminder of the consequences of hatred, discrimination, and unchecked political extremism. By 1944, the Allied powers were preparing one of the largest military operations ever attempted. On June 6, 1944, known as D-Day, Allied forces landed on the beaches of Normandy in France. Thousands of soldiers stormed heavily defended German positions. The operation was risky and costly, but it succeeded in establishing a foothold in occupied Europe. The liberation of Western Europe had begun. As Allied forces advanced from the west and Soviet forces pushed from the east, Germany found itself trapped. Cities were bombed continuously, resources dwindled, and morale collapsed. In April 1945, Soviet troops entered Berlin. Adolf Hitler retreated to his underground bunker and ultimately took his own life on April 30th, 1945. Germany officially surrendered on May 8th, 1945, a date now celebrated as Victory in Europe Day. However, the war was not yet over. Japan continued fighting despite suffering devastating losses across the Pacific. The United States had captured several strategic islands, but anticipated that an invasion of Japan would result in enormous casualties on both sides. In August 1945, the United States made a decision that remains controversial to this day. It dropped the world's first atomic bomb used in warfare on Hiroshima. 3 days later, a second atomic bomb was dropped on Nagasaki. The explosions instantly destroyed much of both cities and killed tens of thousands of people. Many more died later from radiation-related illnesses and injuries. The devastation was unlike anything humanity had ever witnessed. On August 15, 1945, Japan announced its surrender, officially bringing World War II to an end. By the time the war was over, more than 60 million people had lost their lives. Entire cities had been destroyed. Millions had been displaced from their homes. Families were separated forever, and the world was forced to confront the terrible consequences of global conflict. Yet World War II also reshaped the modern world. It led to the creation of international institutions dedicated to maintaining peace. Advances in technology, medicine, and aviation accelerated during the war. Nations began working together to prevent another conflict of such magnitude. The war also marked the beginning of a new geopolitical era. Two superpowers emerged, the United States and the Soviet Union, leading to decades of political tension during the Cold War. Today, World War II serves as both a historical lesson and a warning. It teaches us the importance of diplomacy, tolerance, and international cooperation. It reminds us that hatred and unchecked ambition can have devastating consequences for humanity. More than 80 years later, the stories of courage, sacrifice, and resilience from World War II continue to inspire people around the world. Veterans who fought for freedom, civilians who endured unimaginable hardships, and generations that rebuilt nations after the conflict deserve to be remembered. World War II was not just a war between nations. It was a struggle that shaped the destiny of humanity itself. And perhaps its most important lesson is this: peace should never be taken for granted.